You are listening to WTUZ Radio Podcast. Welcome to WTUZ Radio Podcast. I am your host, Rhonda. And today's topic, we are doing a part 2 on the Black royals and rulers. Okay, so if you have not caught the first part of this podcast, I highly encourage you to do so. We go through the lineage of the Black/melanated royals of Europe. Very, very interesting stuff. So we're going to pick up where we left off, and what we're using for one of our main sources for this particular series is a book called The Negro Rulers of the British Isles. So this is, let me get this for you. Just want you to see the cover, so bear with me here. Okay, so The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isle by Dr. John L. Johnson. He did an absolutely wonderful job, and I'm going to have a difficult time trying to skip around in this book. He did such a good job that literally I'm not able to skip around. So that's a good thing. So this particular episode 2 of the series, we are going to talk about the House of Alpine. Okay, so let's kind of read through what they say, what he's saying based on his particular research, and then we're going to jump over and read 2 sources of the mainstream history that they're teaching. Okay. All right. So the House of Alpine, Fergus Moor, Negro, Kenneth mcalpine, Donald I. mcalpine, Constantine the First, and I said I meant the first. I'm assuming that's the first. Constantine I. mcalpine, Edith. I wonder if that's where Edith derived from. Edith mcalpine, Ocade mcalpine, Donald II mcalpine, Constantine II mcalpine, Malcolm I mcalpine, Induff mcalpine, Kenneth the Niger. We talked about that in the first episode. Niger, Dub, or black, because remember, dub means black. Okay, so we already know that anytime you see the word Niger or Niger, that is automatically referring to black. Okay, now I know that term, when you use it with the hard ER, that's giving it a negative connotation. All right, but other languages, matter of fact, Spanish uses the word Niger to describe black. All right, so the Niger mcalpine, Cullen mcalpine, Kenneth II mcalpine, Constantine III mcalpine, Kenneth III mcalpine, Kenneth IV mcalpine, and Malcolm II mcalpine. The following rulers of Scotland, so let's just be clear. Kenneth the Niger black, right? So Kenneth the Niger black, or dub, and here are all of the descendants of that line, which are deriving from black. So the following rulers of Scotland yeah, those black rulers, regardless of their blood connection with Kenneth mcalpine, politically selected other dynasty titles as, now this I found interesting. Get ready, family. Get ready. The following rulers of Scotland, regardless of their blood connection with Kenneth mcalpine, politically selected other dynasty titles as the House of Dunkeld, House of Canmore, House of Balal, I may be pronouncing it wrong, House of Bruce. I'm not going to, I have to be truthful. House of Bruce is House of Bruce, and the House of Stewart are the only two out of this line that I recognize. But what we need to get out of this is that the mcalpines also selected dynasty titles. Okay, so here's the titles that they selected. All right? Because remember, in part one, if you are here from part one, we talked about how the title of steward was issued. Okay? The Moorish House of Steward continued to rule both Scotland and England in AD 1603 until it was succeeded in AD 1714 by a German rule and blood kin of the Stuarts. Let me back that up. The House of Stuart continued to rule both Scotland and England in AD 1603 until it was succeeded in AD 1714 by a German rule and blood kin of the Stuarts called the Hanoverian Dynasty. This dynasty was succeeded by the Saxe-Coburg Gotha Dynasty in 1840 by the same people of the German Hanoverian Dynasty. Pretty important stuff here. I told you I'm really having a hard time like hitting the highlights of his body of work because all of it is so good. So what can I say? I mean, I guess I shouldn't complain. He's just really doing a great job. Okay. In 1917, the dynasty was renamed the House of Windsor that exists today. Okay, so we know the House of Windsor today is a Caucasian dynasty. Okay, but the original dynasty came from Niger, Dub, or Black, the mcalpines. Okay, now a great question was asked in the comment section on part one that, there's rumors that the Windsor dynasty, specifically Queen Elizabeth from the Windsor dynasty, that she is not the rightful bloodline. And I have absolutely heard that rumor before. Of course, I don't know that it's true. But either way, what we do know is that this Windsor name was sanctioned. And once this House of Windsor name or title or dynasty was switched out from the Saxe-Coburg Gotha Dynasty, or the Hanover, I always say Hanover, but I know it's Hanoverian Dynasty. Once this German dynasty was, the melanated Black dynasty was switched out, it became Caucasian white. So I don't know if the Caucasian white Windsor dynasty is of mixed heritage or if it was just a total different bloodline that has Caucasian people. I don't know that for sure. Okay. And of course, I don't think they'll ever tell that until they're ready to tell it. Okay. But in my opinion, the creating this dynasty or switching it from the Saxe-Coburg Gotha dynasty and the Hanoverian dynasty to the Windsor was a huge reset to switch it out from melanated rulership over to Caucasian rulership. Okay, that is my opinion. That's what the evidence is leading me to. Let's continue. Kenneth, the Niger's father, was named Malcolm MacDonald, the first, who was believed to be the 8th king of Scotland. How many melanated MacDonalds are there out there? Historians have enjoyed applying the phrase Kenneth the Niger rather than Kenneth the Niger MacDonald. For the name MacDonald means son of a black or dark-skinned warrior, which in turn bear a direct connection with Scotland's first king of Alpine dynasty, Kenneth mcalpine, who was a Moorish Negro. The short form for the name Donald is Don, Dun, or Don, or Dun, which means child, black, dark, or Negro. When James Stuart IV of Scotland became England's first Scottish ruler, he was also of Moorish Negro lineage, as was every male king of the bloodline of Kenneth the Niger, Dub, because remember Dub means black, and his forefather Kenneth mcalpine. And I always want to call him mcalpine because that's a popular name today. I'm assuming that's a derivative. McAlpine is a derivative from McAlpine. Kenneth mcalpine was also called Niger Valdub. The name McAlpine was applied to Kenneth mcalpine's descendants and siblings. The forefather of Kenneth mcalpine and all of his descendants was Fergus Moor, Negro, Black, or Niger, who was the first king of Scotland. In the Greek Septuagint, and I apologize, I know I ain't pronouncing that right, and Geneva Bibles, in Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 12, the African Ethiopia is identified as a Moor, the same as Moor, Mar, Maru, or Moravian, meaning Negro. The Scottish, British, Moorish King James made a comment to his wife Anne that his lineage sprung from the Fergus race. In the Great Gallery of the place of Holyrood House in Edinburgh, there exists 89 portraits of Scottish kings from Fergus Moor, Negro, to Charles II, the Black Boy. Okay, so again, you can go over and I hope everyone gets this book. He's doing an excellent job, and we just at the beginning. All right. So again, this is the Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isle by Dr. John L. Johnson. Okay, so that's the House of Alpine. So let's jump over and see what the official history narrative is saying. Let's see. So, I like to use Wikipedia as an overall source to see where majority of the populace, what they're being either taught or what they think. So this is the House of Alpine. The House of Alpine, also known as the Alpine Dynasty clan. Now this is interesting. China Dia, because somebody was in the comments saying, oh, we all came from Asia. So that's interesting that they're saying clan China Dia, and that could have nothing to do with that. Okay, so clan China Dia mcalpine was the kin group which ruled in Pictish and then the kingdom of Alba from the advent of Kenneth mcalpine in the 1840s until the death of Malcolm II. Kings trace their descendants from Kenneth mcalpine, and Irish genealogies in the Book of Ballymote and the Book of Lecan refer to the kindred as clan. Are they misspelling this? Senanita. No, it's just different variations. By prioritizing descent from Kenneth. The origin of the families are uncertain. Oh. Are they really? Let's jump back over. Oh, sorry. We're going to go over that one too. That origins are it's uncertain. Bear with me, family. Since they said it was uncertain. The first dynasty of Scotland was called the Alpine Dynasty, ruled by the Picts, who were described to be short, pygmoid, dark-skinned people. So let me jump back over here. Now you say House of Alpine. Yeah. You said that, yep. Kenneth mcalpine, he's the start of the Alpine Dynasty, but the origins of the family are uncertain. But the first dynasty of Scotland was called the Alpine Dynasty, ruled by the Picts, who were described to be short, pygmoid, dark-skinned people. Okay. So let's continue. Later, genealogists or of doubtful reliability make Kenneth a descendant of Fine. Who the heck is this? Child, I don't even know who that is. While plausible, such claims are unprovable and only appear in the late 10th century. The associated idea that Kenneth had been king in Dalriada, where's region is that? A Gaelic kingdom, which, so that's still in Scotland and all of that. Oh, okay. Before he contended successfully the power in Pictland in the 840s following the death of this person. Child, these names are getting me. Is supported by nearly contemporary evidence. Okay, so y'all saying y'all don't know where the Alpines stand from. Yeah, we have a source saying the first dynasty of Scotland was called the Alpine Dynasty, ruled by the Picts, who were described to be short, pygmoid, dark-skinned people. Okay. Early kings of clan Senida Alpine are described is described as king of Picts, and the third king, Kenneth's son, Constantine the First, appeared to have been regarded as the last of the 7 Pictish kings. Soon after his death, the descendants of Kenneth were ousted in 878 when Constantine's first brother, Edmac, was taken out by Geric MacDougall. But they returned in 889 when Constantine's son, Donald II, ascended the throne upon the death of the disposition of Geric. I think that's Geric. I bet you that's where Derek comes from. Derek or Jerick with a J. So remember, J was introduced later in the alphabet. It truly wasn't around in 878. Donald II and his successors are described as kings of Alba. During the 10th century, succession alternated between the descendants of Constantine I and those of Ed. Okay, so strife in the late 10th and early 11th century left the descendants of Constantine I unchallenged by male line descendants of Kenneth mcalpine, but Malcolm II left no male heirs. On Malcolm's death, the line of kings descended from Kenneth came to an end. Future kings, while still tracing their descendants from Kenneth, were descended from Malcolm's daughter, Bethach, and her husband, Crenan of Duncan. Okay, so let's go back again. Oops, sorry, family. We already told you we have a source saying, several sources giving you where the dynasty of Alpine comes from. They were ruled by the Picts, who were described to be a short, pygmoid, dark-skinned people. So who got what on the throne? Since they confused on that part, y'all notice that Wikipedia article was hecka short. It was hecka short. But here they clearly gave a breakdown of the next line of rulership. The following rulers of Scotland, regardless of their blood connection with Kenneth mcalpine, politically selected other dynasty titles as the House of Dunkeld. So that's old girls. I shouldn't say old girl. That's not respectful. That's a relative, right? That's one of the McAlpin's, his daughter's husband. That's his name, right? The Dunkeld. So a house was created with the Dunkeld. So that name is through marriage. So either the rest of these names are directly related to McAlpine, or they were politically selected. These dynasties were politically selected to exist. Okay? So let's go into another source. And this is scottclans.com. I need to remember to save this. Y'all probably hear them, my next door neighbor's chickens. It's that season. Here we go. Me and that doggone rooster. So, The House of Alpine, named after King Alpine II of Dalriada, the House of Alpine brought together the crowns of the Scots and the Picts. King Alpine had previously been called King of Picts and Scots, as well as King of Dalriada. Oh, okay, so that's where they get dalriada from. He reigned from around 833 to 840. King Alpine II was Alpine II was the first tribal leader on record and held land in Kentry or Kentyre and in Northern Ireland. From evidence which exists, he appears to have died in battle against the Picts in Galloway. Legend said he was married to a Pict princess who allowed his son Kenneth to unite the kingdoms, that of the Pictish or the Pictish and Celtic thrones, with the Picts' succession went through the female line. Now, this is interesting because it appears that King Alpine married an indigenous woman of that region. Okay? And I find it interesting that the Picts, so in other words, King Alpine II, I don't know, and forgive me, I keep saying alpine, but King Alpine married into the Picts. But the Picts, who were indigenous in that particular area in Ireland, they ran their bloodline through the women, which typically when you see indigenous people around the world, that's usually the way it works. So I was like, oh, clutch the pearls. But let's continue. King Alpine's son, Kenneth I, formed this new kingdom of Scotland. Kenneth mcalpine or Kenneth mcalpine, okay, they just spelled it a different way, or King Kenneth I became the first king of this new kingdom of Scotland. Years later, during the reign of Donald II, the king was titled the King of Alba. From the rule of Donald I, the House of Alpine followed the ancient Celtic law of tanistry, meaning that the royal family selected the new successor to be king. This chosen successor would act like a regent, so if the king was away on business, this person would take over. It was a very practical answer to the problems of the time. Low lifespans meant that very few men lived into their old age, not leaving an adult descendant. The later tradition of the kingship going to the oldest son, which we still see today, wouldn't have worked then, as it would have left the kingdom in the hands of children. Okay, and we saw this going on later down when you get to like the Stuart line. And, for a matter of fact, James Stuart, King James Stuart is one example of his father got taken out in war, if I'm not mistaken, and he got the throne as a young man. Okay, and then that happened again with King Henry VIII. Okay, and he actually had 2 adult daughters, and I forgot that he had a son. And his underage son was a teenager, and the underage son wind up transitioning, and then the power eventually went to the daughters. Okay. So that's interesting. At that time, it was different and arguably better structure. Tanistry came to a savage end with Malcolm II, who wanted to ensure that the succession remained in its own branch of the House of Alpine by taking out most of those who might have a claim from somewhere else within the family. Child. While kings lists have survived, little is known about them as individuals until the 36th until the 36th king, Kenneth, son of Alpine. The capital of Dalriada / the Kingdom of Scotland was Dunade, near Kilmartin Glen in Argyll. Now, those of you in Chicago, y'all know them projects called Argyll Gardens. Of course, they don't exist anymore. Y'all get what their name? See where this stuff comes from? This spot has been occupied since the Iron Age and is one of the most famous historical sites in Scotland, a spectacular hill fort, and the probable site of where the kings were inaugurated during the time of the House of Alpine. Dunad was founded by Fergus Mott in about AD 500. So, let's just refresh the fam's memory. Shoot, I wonder if I can. I don't know why it's not acting right for me. I don't appreciate this. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we are I just want to refresh folks' memory on that particular name, Fergus Mott. Okay. Maybe I'm losing my place. I'm probably losing my place. Okay, I'll let it go. But I was just going to point out again what it ties back to. So no worries. It was a complex fortification defended by 4 lines of walling on different levels. These structures appear to have been built between AD 500 and 1000. Objects found in excavation show us that it was a site for fine metalwork. Okay, so was this in the Iron Age? Okay, I'm assuming it was. The basin and the footprint may have been used in the inauguration of kings of Dalriada. The most remarkable feature is a series of carving on a rock slab neath the summit. There is a figure of a boar near the outline of a footprint and a rock-cut basin. Could it be that the footprint symbolically married the kings to their land? There are a late medieval description about this kind of inauguration. Oh, excuse me. On the same rocky outcrop is an scissored boar. There is also Ogham script running beside it. The real meaning of these carvings are unknown, and the script a complete mystery, a language lost in the mist of time. Okay. All right. So let's just see real quick. I think they actually did a good job. I'm surprised. I just clicked over and to Kenneth mcalpine. And maybe I'm just tripping, but they depicted him as tawny. He's tawny. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that they got him on here as tawny. I really, really am. Wow. Okay, and I just wanted to jump over just to see for grins. Okay. The story, and so this is Kenneth McAlpine, 843 to 859. The story we commonly hear is that Kenneth McAlpine is one of Scotland's great heroes. The champion, who is AD 840, is supposed to have driven off the Vikings. This brave war leader appears to have come from nowhere, but we already know where they said he came from. So, just again, the first dynasty of Scotland was called the Alpine Dynasty, ruled by the Picts, who were described to be short, pygmoid, dark-skinned people. All right? So, now I can't judge his height. He don't look short here. He's not dark, but he's not Caucasian either. He looking a little tawny-ish to me with 2 braids. Okay? So, this brave war leader appears to have come from nowhere, stepping into the power vacuum created after the existing royal line is massacred by the Vikings. So it is that Kenneth McAlpine steps in and unifies Scotland and is famously crowned the first king of Scotland. Okay, so they claim in the historical records tell different. Oh, well, okay. All right, because whatever, you just contradicted yourself up in this first page. All right, so I just wanted to give you some more sources on the house of Alpine. Okay, so just to keep everything together, the house of Alpine was the first one out the gate, per se, over in Scotland, right? And then they created these other houses. They politically selected these other dynasty or dynastic titles. The House of Dunkeld, based on what that other source is saying, through marriage, that Dunkeld name is through marriage of the daughter of one of the McAlpines. I think it was Malcolm. Okay. The House of Canmore, House of I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. House of Bruce, and the House of Stuart. Okay. So the House of Alpine created these other houses. All right. So let's get into what they're saying. What Dr. John L. Johnson, from his book, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isle. So let's get into Kenneth McAlpine, the Niger. Okay. The Christian converted Moorish Pictish Kenneth McAlpine, who was called Niger Valdub, was the first king of Scottish Alpine dynasty. The Scottish archaeologist David McRitchie stressed that Alpine, the father of Kenneth Alpine, was a half-black Pitt and a half-black Scot, whose son, Kenneth, was the first to merge the two foremost branches of the blacks in Scotland. Okay. When Kenneth McAlpine died, his younger Moorish brother, Donald I, succeeded him following the death of Donald. His nephew, Constantine I, the older son of Kenneth McAlpine, succeeded him. Constantine I, after suffering a defeat and beheaded. Okay, so he's just, reminding people that use the Bible as sources. Number one, he's giving you different versions of different Bibles. So shout out to him. And he's just pointing out the scriptures saying moor. So anybody that, because I literally heard someone say that moor doesn't mean black. And I'm like, are you kidding me now? Or the Moors weren't black. I was just blown away. I'm like, people will go to any length to stay in their comfort zone. So he's just simply listing here, once again, anywhere we see the term Moor, it is synonymous with black. All right, so after suffering a defeat and beheaded by the Vikings, okay, so now if you want to know what was going on with the Vikings, check out a YouTube channel called Medicine Man. A shout out to Medicine Man. He did an excellent drop on the Vikings. Okay. Right. Hint, they were Moors, meaning black. Okay. So, was succeeded by his Moorish younger brother. I don't know if that's Edith. That looks like Edith to me, whose reign was short-lived. After the death of King Edith, his nephew Eckhard and cousin Jarek. Oh, Greg or Gregory. Thank you for, because I was calling old boy Jarek. So y'all see that Giric translate today to Greg or Gregory, because I was seeing Jarek. Succeeded the throne and ruled jointly. Following Eckhard, cousin Donald II, son of Moorish Constantine I. So he's just going through this genealogy again. So I'm not going to go over this because this would have been the third or fourth time we went over it. I'll just pick this back up right here. Every king who followed Kenneth mcalpine was of Moorish descent. So just to be clear, of black skin tone. Okay. But remember, the Moors, if you use that term, comes out of what? Let's just go back. And I was looking for that Vegas and that other one, and then of course I came right to it. But they come out of Africa. Okay. The long head of Northern Europe is regarded now by ethnologists as a short of headed brunette Mediterranean race of Africa. An old Irish legend speaks of dark-skinned giant race who settled in Ireland from Africa and Spain, who descended from Noah and Ham. Spain was earlier called Iberia, Ethiopia. So just to remind folks of when you hear that word Moors, you have to take it into its total content, because today, of course, it's meaning different things. Okay, in the Americas anyway. But traditionally, Moors meant Nigers with assumed black skin out of North Africa. Niger, a river in northwest Africa, which rises on the northeast border of Sierra Leone. Okay. So I just want to remind people what these terms really mean. Okay. So every king who followed Kenneth mcalpine was of Moorish descent. McAlpines descended Kenneth Dub, Niger Duff or Duffy, and all of his successors were called the Sons of the Black. So go on and look up his particular source. The four most popular African Moorish kings to rule Scotland were Kenneth mcalpine, Niger, Valdub. I mean, that's blackety, 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 black. Dub is black. Niger, from that particular black region. Kenneth the Niger. Ooh, child. Macbeth. And James the Fourth. So let me read that again. The four most popular African Moorish kings to rule Scotland were Kenneth mcalpine, Niger Valdub, Kenneth the Niger, Macbeth, and James the Fourth. So that means James had to be of bloodline to mcalpine. King James went on to become the first African Moorish Scottish king of England. All rulers of Scotland until the 17th century were descendants of King mcalpine, either through the male or the female line. Boom. So in the case of the one house that they showed, that was the name was through one of the mcalpine's daughters. It was her husband's name. Okay, and they decided to set up that house based on her husband's name. But that would have more than likely never happened had he not been married to a mcalpine. The African Moorish Kenneth mcalpine Niger Valdub is the 33rd great-grandfather of Elizabeth II. The king fathered Constantine. It could be Ed too. Ed and 3 daughters. He died in AD 859. Okay, so look at his the picture they have here of Kenneth mcalpine the Niger. Okay, they do have him here as swarthy. He's darker. Okay, and peep his get up. Let me see if I could. Oh man, I was hoping I could blow this up for you, family. I can't blow it up. Sorry. But you notice his hat. Does that hat look familiar to you? Isn't that the hat that the Pope wears? All right. Okay, so we're going to use that as a stopping point. This is really getting good, fam. Let's just read this footnote real quick. The ancient alpine religion, which was called Celtic druidism, was characteristically a Negro Canaanite ritual called Baalism or Hamism. Druidism, which also promoted the one God worship, had existed long before. Ooh. Yo, this is interesting. I'm just going to read that back over again. The ancient alpine religion, which was called Celtic druidism, was characteristically called Negro Canaanite ritual called Baalism or Hamish. Druidism, which also promoted the one God worship, had existed long before Judaism. Christianity, and Islamic, by which many Jewish, Christians, and Islamics values are borrowed. Christmas tree, Easter, etc. The Canaanite chief god El, or El Elyon, those that like to say Elohim today, also called the Most High God, was adopted by the Hebrews. They're giving you the biblical scripture. So I'm just gonna highlight this. So this right on here, right on chair. Okay, so this is a good stopping point. So again, I'm really trying to highlight what Dr. John L. Johnson is saying in his book, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles, but it's so doggone good. So thank you, family, for joining us. This is our second podcast on this particular show, The Black Royals and the Rulers. So we'll come back next week and pick up where we left off. I am really, really enjoying this. I'm learning a lot more, getting a lot more insight, and it's really helping me tie together the bloodlines regarding the European rulership in its entirety. So I hope you are also getting some value out of this as well. And if you are not subscribed to us, I highly encourage you to subscribe, like, and share. This is Rhonda with WTUZ Radio Podcast. I wish everyone well on this Friday. Peace and love.
What?